If Mother Nature were to make a list of all her favorites, the apple surely would be among those at the top. Touched by the sun, rocked gently by the breeze, nourished by the rain, the apple is one of nature's oldest, most beautiful gifts. It bursts forth each spring in blossoms, which give way each fall to a magnificent harvest of fruit. Thanks to modern cultivation and harvesting techniques employed by the nation's apple growers and their effective use of the flexibility and economy of truck transport, apples and a wide variety of delicious apple products are a year-round favorite everywhere. Apple country in the United States is found along the eastern slopes of Virginia's Shenandoah Valley, where these orchards are located, to the Great Lakes areas of New York and Michigan, and the Hood River and Yakima Valley areas of Oregon and Washington. Apple country, in fact, is anywhere you have the happy marriage of climate and fertile soil that offer winter temperatures cold enough to ensure a few dormant months each year for the trees, but moderate enough to avoid late freezes. Of the 10,000 or more varieties of apple grown in the world, more than 7,000 are grown in the United States, although 18 varieties make up about 90% of the apples produced in this country. The apple is an ancient fruit, mentioned often in religion, poetry, and in early legends. It is also generally believed that Roman soldiers took cultivated apples with them when they conquered England. The fruit was introduced to America by English settlers about 1629, and it spread westward from the Atlantic coast. Since then, its popularity and the skill of those who produce and market each year's crop has grown steadily. Today, the United States leads the world in apple production, with more than 130 million bushels each year. That's big business, and it calls for well-organized, highly efficient harvesting and processing methods. But it particularly requires dependable, flexible, economical transportation. And that means trucks. When harvest time arrives, scenes like these are repeated endlessly in every apple orchard. From the first faint light of dawn until after dark, the orchards are alive with activity as tractors, field trailers, and trucks move boxes of apples from the orchard to assembly points. This is the moment the grower has waited for, when each apple is bursting with flavor, and row after row of carefully tended trees are so heavy with fruit that their branches touch the ground. The orchard swarms with pickers, some with ladders climbing to the tops of the trees, while others work swiftly along the lower branches. Speed is vital. The fruit must be harvested while it is at its peak, and before the first hard frosts of the approaching winter season strike. Yet each apple is handled gently and is placed carefully in waiting crates, each one holding more than 20 bushels. Under the watchful eye of a checker, the filled crates are collected and moved by tractors and forklifts to the assembly point, and the waiting trucks, which will carry them on the next leg of their journey, the packing plant. No matter how steep the grade or how remote the orchard's location, the versatile truck plays a key role in moving the freshly picked apples from point to point in a vast production and marketing line that stretches all the way from the tree to the consumer. At the packing plant, where the day's harvest from thousands of acres of trees begins to arrive shortly after sunup, the pace is just as fast. Small and medium-sized trucks from the orchards make repeated trips to the plant, where they meet briefly with larger over-the-road tractor-trailer units that will hurry the fruit to market hundreds of miles away. But before that moment arrives, the first order of business for every apple is a bath. Tens of thousands of them bobbing their way to market in a seemingly endless and rarely interrupted symphony of motion and color. Bright and shiny, they roll and tumble quickly but gently on conveyor belts through a highly mechanized series of washing, weighing, sorting, and grading, with the expert hands and eyes of the packager waiting at the end of the line. If an apple should be bruised along the way, or a less than perfect specimen should escape earlier detection, this is where it is finally caught and removed. Packaging of market-ready apples is also a swift and steady process, highly mechanical, ever mindful of the need to keep the harvest moving. While these apples are being made ready for the tractor-trailers that will carry them direct to market, other apples in other trucks are being hauled to storage warehouses. The vast interior of the warehouse fills quickly with a year's harvest. It provides a controlled atmosphere that assures a ready supply of fresh apples all year round. Piled high, layer on layer, each truckload of apples is moved quickly into the warehouse, where the thousands of stored crates of fruit become part of a remarkable process of preservation. The amount of oxygen in the air is lowered, and the percentage of carbon dioxide is raised, causing the stored apples to age very slowly, retaining their crisp, fresh, delicious appearance and taste until they are once again loaded on trucks, this time to complete their journey to store counters and lunch baskets throughout the country. For many apples, however, the distance from tree to table is not so direct. For them, there will be a complete change of form, but it's a change that will only enhance their flavor and their desirability. 1/3 of the varieties of apple grown in the United States today are destined to be processed into cider and vinegar, into pie fillings, jelly, and juice. Trucks, which make the swift and economical harvesting and marketing of apples possible, will carry about 90% of that harvest, and a major part of the processed apple products. Man's love for this sparkling fruit has carried it round the world. And when man finally made his historic journey to the moon aboard Apollo 11, applesauce was there. Nutrition and flavor in nature's own bright packaging have been a favorite of man for thousands of years. Modern cultivating, harvesting, processing, and marketing, in partnership with the flexibility and economy of America's trucking industry, guarantee its popularity and its availability for a long time to come.